Hey, what's up, guys? So a couple months ago, Blunder did a video on the Smogon Hall of Fame, and well, I thought it was really, really funny. No doubt about that. Then I, being the dork that I am, thought I would offer a more serious version since I've been around for a long time, and I like rambling about the history of Pokemon because if you don't have your history, then it's just a fleeting thing in the moment. And while living in the moment is good, then I like appreciating the things that came before that allow us to be where we are today. And with all that, it's a wonder that I ever failed so many history classes. But yeah, that's what we'll be doing in this video. So this is the Smogon Hall of Fame. Not completely updated, but it'll give you a gist. And I'm not going to talk about myself because I get self-conscious and I'm not a douchebag. So, number two on this list is Tsunami, also known as Shake It Up. So this is going to feel very much like a giant player bio. I hope it doesn't end up. Hope it's doesn't. Yeah, my English is great, but I hope it doesn't end up being like an hour or something stupid of just me rambling. So then he won this tournament on April 28th, 2011. That truly cemented him as among the game's greatest players. Shit like that. But yeah, I will try to give a brief overview, mainly the trophies. So we'll start with Shake. Then I used he came up. He played mostly lower tiers, but also Black and White OU. He played in the Smogon Tour. He did pretty well always, and he's somewhat notorious for hating and being bad at Advanced now. But back when Advanced was in Smogon Tour, he was actually very good at it. He made tour playoffs. I think he definitely at least once. He lost to Ojama in the tour Ojama one, but yeah, he might have. I think he did at least one more time. But yeah, then he was on the SPL champion Sharks in SPL 5. He broke out in SPL 4 because he went 10-0, and one of them was activity win, and he played like every different tiers every week. But yeah, that was his breakout where he was known as kind of this ladder guy. He got tutored by Tom and Draco Malfoy in advance, but he was formerly a Purple Surge guy who just came out of the woodworks and in his first big tournament, and then he did well. Then he was on East when they won in 2013, and he came back for 2016 World Cup. That's World Cup. You see that? That was the first one. That was 2016. That was this past year. And that's one for like 5. And then he won as the manager of the Classiest in 6. And he made it to the finals of 7 as manager again. 5, he was a player. And he had a good record in different tiers. So he almost had 3 in a row. That would have been scary. And he's known for playing RU and mainly, and he was always very good at that. So, and then he surprised a lot of people when he won the Smogon Classic because people knew he was a good player, but like this was where he showed he can really, really play. Now, he likes to build and make stall, and he used to be known for like cut caps farm hyper offense. Spike stacking, super aggressive offense in every tier he played. But then he shifted into stall in the lower tiers. But it was really hard to beat for a lot of people's styles. Excuse me. And then for classic, then he can't really pull those tricks as easily in those tiers. So he mainly just used other people's teams that were proven to be good, but it worked. And he beat some very impressive players in the way there, including Tasung in the final. So yeah, that's Shake for you. It's a lot of success over a number of years. Moving on. So number 3 is August. He is before and during my time, I guess, because his first semblance of success was, you see, winning the 5th official Smogon tournament, which he was, I think he said he was 13 at the time, maybe 14. But he was a relatively new player, just coming out of the Wi-Fi section on Smogon, getting into Shoddy, and he loved terrorizing things with mixed men's, which is why you see the Salamence by his avatar. You see Shake with the Register because he was known for spamming in RU. Reggie Mola walled everything, or so I'm told. But yeah, Og won that tournament. He beat a lot of really impressive names to get there. Among them were, I think, Jabba the Griffin, Twist of Fate, Veteran in Love, and then Goki in the semifinals. And there was luck involved, of course, like there always is in Pokemon, but that is a very impressive list. And in the finals, he beat Locopoke, who I don't think a lot of people would know these days, but he was very, very good at DPP OU and Black and White OU, and very good at Ubers too. He was one of the definitive DPP Ubers guys. But yeah, Og was first came to prominence for winning that. Why do I want to reply to this? What the hell does that mean? I think my computer just fucked up. But yeah, Og won that in impressive fashion. He used this offensive team with Lead Azolf, Submachamp, Mixments, and he just and Sublife or P-Train, that was a big one. And he just loved terrorizing Stall with it. So after that, he kind of started becoming known as the UU guy. He was a huge UU guy. And in Black and White, then he delved into UU at first, and then became known for RU. He was one of the Black and White RU guys throughout the generation. Definitely starting in Black and White too. But yeah, I remember that very specifically. He wasn't really into it at the beginning. I remember the beginning of Black and White RU in fall 2011 had a different set of faces. Not many who stuck around for long, but it was considered by many to be the best tier of Gen 5, and Gen 5 had a lot of great ones. So, yeah, Og became one of the definitive RU guys, making teams like he had this Suicide Smeargle one with Tauros and I think Acrobatic Sceptile. It was just really, really fun. And his creative side really flourished in the lower tiers. But in DPPUU, he had a bunch of teams like this. I remember I was 14. It was fall 2010. He posted this UU RMT with this. I think it was Suicide Quillfish, Spiking, and a bunch of really, really heavy guys. And yeah, I think he had a Scarf Rotom because he was slightly weak to a Rock Polish Torterra or something. So yeah, he became known for that. And then you see the other trophies are all World Cup for East. He was never really a dedicated Black and White OU player, but when he did play, he was very, very good. In 2013, he came over. Actually, no, first in 2012, he played for. He had been on hiatus for a while, but he came back to play for U.S. Metro and went 3-0 in the first round. I think he used the same team all three times too. Back then, that wasn't such a big deal, but it still wasn't really common. You know, it was this offensive team. It was like T-Tar, Scizor, Scarf Rotom, or not Scarf Rotom. I'm sorry, just Rotom Wash because Bolt Turn was becoming prominent. It was really at its peak then, and Scarf Mence, which was a big deal. And I think he might have had a Lando, Terrakia, and Jirachi or something in there. I don't think so, but something like that. Not a Latios, I know that. But yeah, it was basically the same offense team, and I was like, I would never use something like that because just the Scarf Mence just felt, not right to me. But he made that shit work. He had this. It was like an offensive tar in a period where all of them were either Scarf or occasionally banned, or rarely the weak Spadef rock set. But yeah, it was. I remember his game against Minism where he just was crushing shit with left and right, fire blasting, ice beaming, and a game against Pedrock after, where he delivered a big win. So yeah, that was big, and then he had a really tough game against Toph in the 5-way tiebreak, I think, for round one of that year to get into the playoffs. I don't remember the game, but I remember him saying it was a tough one. Yeah, Metro had a great team that year. And then the year after, he came over to US East because he went to school in Virginia. And he wasn't really a Black and White OU guy, but he was a tough player. He came up with great shit like this rock polished mixed T-Tar. And this video is going to go on for a while. I apologize. But yeah. So yeah, he was a big part of that. And afterwards, then he closed out Black and White by making it to the playoffs of Slam. He really shone in all the lower tiers, especially RU, but also UU. He was really great at that, and he was also obviously quite good. He was really noted for playing UU and NU, but I always thought he's good at those. So he was really a great player. And then afterwards, then he just became like the DPP, one of the DPP guys in World Cup and SPL. He just came back for those, and he was always great in those. I worked with him a lot. Tremendous player. He had a lot of really creative ideas, came up with a lot of shit. Like one of his notable one of the notable RMTs in the last few years was his DPP one, his offense team that he used in SPL against TV Rocca, and then in World Cup Finals a few months later against Polka Basket. The Aero lead with Didi Guerra, Titar, Nick Geraci, um, Barry Tran, I forget which Barry, I think Pasha, and Scarf Shaman for the sweep and the healing wish, and it was cool. And yeah, he just generally a really, really solid player. Always, most of the teams he ended up bringing would advance the metagame in some way. And I remember once he brought fucking Metacham Obama Snow to a World Cup game, so Monster Sky, and that's he was on East for all of their victories, so see him there. Okay, that was a lot, and I could ramble on for years about all the stuff he's done in DPP over the years. Like 2016's Scarf Kingdra Clefable Doug Trio semi-stall team, that was a lot of fun, but there's just too much. So we're going to move on to his teammate on US East, Badass, originally known as one of the DPP UU guys, always a contender in the three tour tiers back in TPP, which being hosted on Shoddy, which only had Gen 4 support, was OU, UU, Ubers, instead of the three most recent gens, like it was originally supposed to be when it was on Net Battle, so it was RBY, GSC, ADB. But yeah, he was always noted. When I was joining Smogon, he was one of the first notable names I saw. He was playing UU. He was really solid. He was a creative team. CPU was a great tier, and he was one of its faces. Really, I remember he played it in SPL 2. He was one of the guys who played it in SPL 2, which even though Black and White had come out, Black and White UU was not yet in existence, so they used UU, and he was one of the guys who played it there. I think he played in the first one, although I wasn't around for the first one. Don't remember much of it. Yeah, he was great at OU too. Obviously, he was always he was. I remember noticing he was in with like the best players, so like he knew what the secret good stuff was going around. When I first joined Smogon, and I had already been playing DPP for a while, and I knew like good players use underrated stuff, but like all the good players we hung around like the Enzos and the Apologies and all those kinds of guys. They had like seemingly an endless amount of cool stuff, like you know the lead Gallades and the Venusaurs and the Milotics, and it was just like, wow, okay, are we playing UU or what? But yeah, it was really awesome to see, and he was he then got pretty good at advance. And he was a Black and White OU guy when that came out, but although I don't remember him for the earlier parts of the gen, but obviously he got into it at some point. And then he became the he got into Black and White UU as well, and that's why you see that Grand Slam. That was 2013, whereas Black and White lower tiers started coming out in 2011. But he was always one of the good players in those, and he's able to he really beat up on the lower tier guys, and he just loved the hell out of them. And remember he played UU in SPL 5. He was terrific. Yeah, he's able to play Gen 3 through 5 OU very well. He was pretty good at Oris, actually, I remember, and in one of its not beginning but still early-ish stages. So let's see. Then there was he won Smogon Premier League playing a bunch of lower tiers for the Classiest in SPL 6. He was managed by this guy. And he was also part of the U.S. East machine. He was on U.S. East in World Cup 2012. He had a bunch of he was fierce and fearlessly creative. I remember he brought a Lapras against a French guy in round 1, and he almost won with it. And we just kind of let him because he was so confident. He was a great player. And in 13, he had a bunch of big moments as well. I think he won the game that sent East to the finals against Germany. He clinched that one. I think he was using a team built by Hugo, great Astrid, my buddy, who built a team with 3 fighting types. At the time, I was like, holy fucking shit, 3 fighting types. So, Yeah, he was. I could go on more. And in this past World Cup, actually, he saved U.S. East from defeat against Germany because East was down. Uh, they had to win the last game to go to a tiebreaker, or else they were done. And he stepped into advance, and he beat Fakes, who is amazing at advance. He was like he's not really a like a superstar guy at a certain tier, mainly because the lower tiers don't exist. You know, for more than their generation in a really serious setting. I mean, not to discredit their tournaments that still go on, but you know what I mean. But yeah, he's just able to step in. In World Cup 15, I forced him to sign up, and he ended up coming through with a big win in the finals and helping us the entire time, and ended up thanking me for forcing him out of retirement. So yeah, that's he had the three trophies at the time. Three active trophies. I'm sorry. And Grand Slam, that was impressive because he was known as one of the lower tier guys. And then in round one, he beat who the hell did he beat? Um, what was very impressive was that in he beat August, right? Yeah, that was insane. And then in round two, the semifinals, he beat Blue. We all know Blue and how good he was, and that was also extremely impressive. And then in the finals, he beat Coco Loco, so who was the head of UU and its figurehead pretty much, and he also helped in or was very good at the other tiers, obviously. Yeah, badass won the Ubers Open that year to barely qualify for the playoffs, and you got some team help from Dice and HSA, and really just clobbered everyone. It was his series against Blue in Grand Slam 2013, so the second one is still one of my favorite series. So let us move on a little to Earthworm. So, um, Earthworm is a name that holds extraordinary reverence to anyone who was around for when he played, because when he was around, he was considered by far. I mean, okay, not by far. He had a few contenders for the title, but he was considered the best ever. He was originally a DP guy, as in Diamond and Pearl, no platinum, and he just rose up to prominence. And he's mostly before my time, but he was so notorious that even when I was playing in my early stages on YouTube, even I heard of him and how this guy was like the shit. So he was a big deal. He's won. I think he's like tied for second in most tournament wins ever. So he was a big deal. He won so many big games. He won Smogon Tour 6. He made it to finals of Smogon Tournament 6. In Smogon Tour 6, he beat Goki, who was his primary rival for the term of best ever at the time. But we'll get to Goki later. Goki was one of my heroes too. But yeah, Earthworm was just everywhere, and he played. So he won tour, which was OUU Ubers, against the finals of Tournament 6, where he lost to Henke. But I think he played Panamaxis and I maybe Goki in there. Or I know he played Panamaxis in there. Panamaxis is another contender for that best ever title. But what really rose him to notoriety, I remember. I forget. I think this first World Cup that he won. I think that was 2009. Yes, it was. Then he had already been voted best battler at the Smog Awards for the year before, but he was going up against some really stacked competition because this was the first year Oceania won, and before that only Asia had won, and everyone was like, okay, yeah, Asia is gonna kick the shit out of these guys, especially because they had Husk, another contender for best ever at the time, and and everyone was like, okay, Earthworm's really good, but Asia is Asia. So Asia was super stacked. So and then he ended up winning the game that sent them to a tiebreaker. Well, there were two. Stallion won, Earthworm's teammate. Stallion won, and then Earthworm won and sent them to a tiebreaker. And then he beat Husk in the tiebreaker. Then the following World Cup, where they won, which was 2010, that was the last one of DPP. Then he had a bunch of huge games. He beat Goki and Stone in the tiebreak for round one, I believe. Stone being Stone Cold. Um, uh, and he always had a reputation for being lucky, kind of like if you were around for when McMegan was reigning dominant over everyone, then there would be people who go like, "Oh, but McMegan's so lucky." Earthworm was kind of like that, but he was just but I think part of what made him so good was that he was one of the few players who really played for odds because back in the day, then a lot of people didn't want to win by hacks, which is, fine, honorable. I totally get it. But he was one of the few guys who was like, there's so many odds that go into so many turns that, it's hard to say who actually got hacks or whatever. And he was, I think that awareness is what led to that. And plus his using strategies like subbing up with Pokemon against paralyzed opponents and stuff like that. So yeah, then World Cup 10. You want to? I don't remember. I wasn't really following at that time, even though I was technically around. I was still just looking for Wi-Fi battles on Smogon. So and then the World Cup after that, 2011. Then he won. Well, he had an amazing record. He also won the tiebreak against Philip 7086. The first black and white one. So he was not only known for being the best at DPP, but even throughout Black and White 1, he was one of the best players, or at least through this World Cup. He didn't really play Black and White OU after that, but throughout that, he won the first Black and White OU tournament actually, one of many. And then he won SPL after that with the Ruiners playing primarily GSC and Advance, because he does prefer the older generation of OU generation, sorry. And that's really where he settled since then. Since then he played Black and White OU again in World Cup 2012, where Oceania was first defeated after so long by US East in round two. But even then, he had a great record then. And then that was the end of Black and White 1, and then he really stopped playing Black and White. So, and he played in the first iteration of Victory Road, which was this Ruins of Alph thing. And he was the DPP guy. He had, like, by far the most challenges and an insane record. But after that, he stopped really playing DPP. And then really settled into what most people know him as now, as the GSC guy in SPL and World Cup, where he just continuously has amazing records. So, honestly, it's hard to describe why he. I think I've done a pretty good job. I mentioned about 16 million tiebreak wins that he's had, and a huge amount of individual success as well. I think he's got 29 tournament wins, which is tied with Blue for number 2. But yeah, which is just insane. So, yeah, I mean, this guy was considered the best ever for a very, very long time, and his clout was unmatched. So, I haven't really done it justice, and I don't think I could without making this a really long video, so we're just going to continue. So, we're going to go on to Makiri, who this guy's clout is as a manager. As you see, he's the first guy to entirely have team trophies. He was the manager of the Sharks in SPL 2, 5, and 7 when they won, and was on Oceania when they won. Was on 2 of the Oceania teams, 2010 and 2011. So, yeah, there's not much to say for this guy as a player, but he was just a damn good manager, as you can see. But there's not much I can really tell you besides that. So. Here's another guy who is considered up there with Earthworm, Goki, Husk, and guys like Loki for title of best ever back in the DPP days, and he carried it on throughout Black and White. Actually, Pana, something I forgot to mention about Earthworm was something Pana is very known for, was innovating the shit out of sets. He had this when I first came to Smogon, was browsing RMTs, and he had this Calm Mind Roar Latios team, which really popularized that set. And in the era of semi-stall with Fortress running around. And I first heard of him when I was reading Philip 7086's Team of Torment RMT, which is still my favorite. And he had the Latias set, and he was saying, "I got this from Panamax's RMT," and I was like, "Wow, that's pretty cool." Yeah, yeah, he was. I think he was the guy running Akajirachi um, during the whole Machamp Heatran craze. So I would have to really go back and explore some of this stuff because, again, a lot of his clout was before my time. But I do remember in World Cup 2010, so this one, then he won the deciding game against Ladybug in the finals. So, and not to mention he was just one of the most feared battlers ever. He was also very good at the lower tiers. UU, he was one of the biggest guys in DPP. UU. And in Black and White, he liked playing those too. I remember he was very into XYUU when that first came out. I remember he won Smogon Superstars, the last ADV DBP Black and White one. So, and he won with the Sharks too in SPL 2. He got traded for at the very end, and he had this game against Schofield, which was infamous because he got a lot of luck. And Schofield wrote a very angry post about it, which became kind of a copy pasta for a while. And then he won again with the Sharks in 5, but as a manager. But yeah, this guy was one of the best and really nice dude. Oh, he was also making in 2010, I believe, he had this very known Zapdos Raikou team. It was one of the he was one of the few guys using shit like Doug Trio, and he had what's it fucking called? Zapdos, Raikou, Celebi, Infernape, and Polion Dugtrio. Or no, Tyranitar over Infernape, sorry. And then it had a second version, had Lead Infernape. And, but yeah, that team was big. It was Zapplate Zapdos, I believe. Let us see, what else was there? He had a Trick Iron Ball Gross going on, in addition to the Latias set from earlier. And, I mean, I could find a million more things he could. Just very, very highly regarded player, and he was great in Black and White. Actually, he was chosen to pick the tiebreak against U.S. East in 2012, and he had a I think I think he only had one loss out of like 6 games or 7 in World Cup 2011, only losing to Schofield a few months after the fiasco in SPL. So yeah, Hannah was a big freaking deal. Moving on, the Chaser, his Oceania teammate. And yeah, he was on the Ruiners with Earthworm when they won. He was the manager who drafted Earthworm for a then record-breaking 30K. Think how far we've come from that. But yeah, he then won with the Classiest in SPL 6 and was on the Sharks SPL 7. Although SPL 6 was kind of a weird one. I think he got traded from the Raiders. Yeah, he was known as the RBY guy because in SPL 2 he went 10-1 in frickin' RBY, and back then we didn't know RBY competition was. Hmm, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this because I personally hate when other people try to shit on the past. Like, oh, the players weren't even that good back then. But nowadays, I think we really understand RBY really well. But then, I'm also kind of talking out of my ass because I don't really know how it was back then. But I think it was amazing. I mean, look at the players playing it. But yeah, back then, I think the misunderstanding part was people thought of RBY as the luck gen. I mean, they still do, but they thought of it like that. And to go 10-1 in RBY is still insane. So he was just, I remember he was known for that. But he was also a DPP, OU, and Ubers guy. He really liked the Ubers, I remember. He was an early Black and White Ubers guy as well. So but yeah, primarily known for his RBY, and he was also good at Black and White. He's part of the Oceania team that won in 2010 and then 2011. So, yeah, that's Chaser for you. He's a very good player. I think he was good at UU too and DPP, but I'm not entirely sure on that. But yeah, mostly known for his insane RBY stuff. So, Atticus, ah, what a guy. He was the first winner of the Smogon Frontier. And then he just became one of the most lauded DPP guys. He had this very definitive early choice band Azelf offense with Wish Call Mine Rachi, and that was the shit. And he was he's the first guys using DD Chisto Rest Kicker and surprising the hell out of people with it in SPL 1, just setting up against Sarmies and Suicunes, who were just like, I'm just going to 2 KO this shit. And then they were like, whoa, this thing just dumped on me. Got 2 DDs rested, and now I'm in some shit. So, yeah, and he played DPP. He was good at that. He was good at Black and White early on. He played it in SPL 2. And I think World Cup after that, but I didn't really play it much afterwards. Although I remember he went 3-0 to many people's surprise in World Cup 2012. Just kind of rolling in with some offense. He was on Team Canada. But yeah, that Frontier win, I wasn't around for it, but he RMT'd the team he won with. It was a Scarf Azelf lead offense with just ball-kicking offense. Life Orb Starmie, Life Orb Tran, Banned Scizor, Banned Flygon, Scarf Rotom. Terrifying shit. You could still use that shit today if you wanted. And then something else he became notorious for was winning the first XY official Smogon tournament. That was some shit. He got some bad press for it because he played in a call, but I mean, I'm not gonna get into that because I was in that call and I don't think there was ghosting, and others will tell you otherwise. But I don't know, and I think we're all biased in that, so I'm just gonna leave it alone. But what I will say is that I don't think he beat Valentine in that. But what I will say is that Atticus was always one of the cleanest players, so I don't think he was really, uh, I don't think that should cast aspersions on his character or doubt his ability as a player. I mean, I think the player he beat to win the Frontier was Goki, and he actually was playing extraordinarily well in that OST. So, whether you want to think about it, I was around for it. I don't think it was so bad. I really don't think it was ghosting, especially considering some of the other shit that happened um, in that tournament. But it's not my place to discuss that scenario. So, yeah, he did win that, and he played extraordinarily well throughout the tournament, I thought. So, but what do I know? And yeah, he won the first Smogon Premier League actually, alongside Goki, the guy he beat to win the Frontier. And yeah, this first Indie Scooters team was an insane amount of heavyweights. Atticus, Goki, Apologies in OU. He was a great player back then. Jabaku in Ubers. They had Fulgorio, who was really, really good at OU and UU. They had someone else, which just made. Oh, they had a Gene, aka G80, who was one of the best advanced players. They had Mr. E, GSC veteran since day one. Husk, he was so good. He was playing RBY for them. Insanely stacked lineup. And yeah, I think they barely made it in actually. Yeah, then he won that, and then he joined SPL 5 at midseason. There's this kind of perfect storm with the whole OST thing going on right after. Yeah, he was allowed to leave the Raiders management midseason to sign up, and he ended up DPPing for the Sharks, and he went 6-0 en route to them winning. So, and he played amazingly in that. So, tremendous player overall, and I think he deserves the accolades. But yeah, I think that's been a lot for that. But he was always a very, very offensive DPP guy. And that carried into his playstyle in the other gens. So moving on, Goofball. This guy is before my time for the most part. Actually, for almost the entire part. But from my understanding, he was one of the defining GSC advanced guys, mainly advanced. When Veteran in Love made the Superman team, then Goofball used the shit out of it and coined the term Superman. From my understanding, I could be wrong. But yeah, he was one of the biggest guys in advance, just really driving the metagame forward. He dominated that shit. And he was just a big name. So when he signed up for World Cup 2015, people got scared for good reason. I mean, look at these accomplishments. So he was on the early Asia dynasty, but you really got to look at this individual stuff. He won Smogon Tour 4 and the official Smogon Tour 4. The official Smogon tournament was the first generation 4 one. It was Diamond and Pearl OU. I believe he beat a man named Jonathan in the finals. I don't know much about that, but it's still goddamn impressive. And I don't know much about the tour he won either. But I remember reading about it, and it was pretty nasty. So this guy, he was kind of an intimidating presence when I came around, but he was, like when metagames are like in their, I want to say, active state, like when they're the main gens, and they're the guys who are pushing them forward, and they're like some of the defining players in them. He was one of those guys, and for my money, that's extremely cool. It's a dorky kind of thing, but like when I think of DPPU and I think of guys like August, Blue, and Fulgorio, Badass, uh, even guys like Aqualui or Stallion or Yandi or other players that I'm forgetting right now because I'm doing it on the spot. But even like that guy Thunda91, I think his name was. Just thinking of the defining dudes in that. To me, that's just the coolest. So, Frankie, how can I forget Frankie? He's the man. But yeah, Goofball was one of the guys who scared the shit out of me when I first came on. He was an intimidating dude, and he was really freaking good at advance. So, moving on. Speaking of Superman, here's the guy who made it. One of the most decorated advanced teams of all times. Of all time. I hate it when people say of all times. It's not right. But yeah, he was the first multi individual tournament trophy winner. He got 3 of those in a row. 2 tours, tour at OST, Frontier at OST. Whereas here we've got all team, although that's not to knock them. They were amazing players, especially Pana. All team, but one individual, one individual, one individual, one individual. And which is why I'm not pretending this format is perfect for ranking players, by the way. But it's just what we have. But yeah, two individual, and Atticus, 2 individual. So that was a big deal. He was like one of the legendary guys. He was also part of that Asia dynasty. He won the first Smogon Tour and then the third one right after it. He was dominant in the first 3 generations. And he was also a very decorated DPP player. I believe he had a very important game against Atticus in World Cup or Frontier. I forget exactly which one it was. But it was during Atticus's Frontier era peak. So, like, how when you see a guy who's just really dominating the metagame, and he's in every single tournament, he just shows up, and like take a guy like ABR when he's just like he was first coming up, he was just in every tournament, or Tsung or Blunder. Then and it was kind of like that for Atticus, and he was going up against like the older guys like Vil, basically. So it was basically the equivalent of that, and I've read those logs. So yeah, Superman is known for its 4 Pokemon that avoid spikes, which is good because rapid spinners can feel like a wasted slot, and they're not guaranteed to work. And sometimes the opponent doesn't bring spikes, and they're just like, "What am I doing?" So, but yeah, it was one of the most celebrated teams of all time. There was a battle of the week. I believe it was season 2. It was G80 versus Goofball. Both of them brought Superman. It was a very decorated team. So, it took advantage of some net battle bugs concerning Rapid Spin and, Substitute. Hence the substitute on Skarmory. And speaking of outdated mechanics, our substitute on Tyranitar, sorry, which is another set. It was literally called Biltar. The Sub Punch Rock Slide and HP Bug or Grass. Mainly Bug, I think. Yeah, it's kind of a. This guy is kind of a big deal, and he still plays now. He's I don't think he ever really played Black and White OU or anything further than DPP, but he's still chugging away in the older gens. Tremendous player. Do not want to, you know, He's a big deal. So and he's been doing it. He was one of the defining GSC players. One of the guides in GSC that Borat writes. He's like, this guy was defining the metagame with a fucking Raichu when Celebi was allowed. So that's I mean, I wasn't around for it, but he was a big deal when most of us were still in diapers. So yeah, I'm gonna take a piss break. So I'm realizing how fucking long this is going to take, and I really don't want to make this a two-part video. So I guess I'm gonna have to speed it up a little bit, which seems kind of lame. Maybe I'll make it two-part. Who knows? Okay, so KG, he won Smogon Tour 12 after he made playoffs for like 5, 6 straight seasons. It was impressive. He was known for it wasn't exactly his creation, but he was so notorious for using it. Kevin Garrett stall, which Hippo, Fori, Bliss, Gara, Rotom. Fori, Gara, and Rest Hawk Rotom were once stall staples. And the other variants like Scartar was the most popular. KG tried Celebi and Shaman in Frontier. Earthworm's famous variant had Spadaf Heatran last. This was one of the earlier examples of that set. But yeah, he won that. After many tries, he loves the older generations, especially Advance. He was very good at Black and White. I think uh, he made tour playoffs of season 14 because Lavos wanted him to sign up, I believe, and then he just got sucked in. But this kind of stuff that's going to drag it out. That kind of interesting anecdote is not exactly what makes this video interesting. So yeah, and then he won a SPL 4 as one of the Wolfpack managers, and then 5 as a player, and then 7 as a player with the Sharks. And he was always a super sub, ready to step in whenever. So yeah, he loves Advance. I know he actually really likes GSC, and he made the playoffs in the first Smogon Clash tournament that really kind of appeals to his stable gen nature. Um, so yeah, he was really known for pretty much those things. He likes to play style Advance a little these days. I think he likes offense a little bit more. And yeah, so moving on, Philip7086, big man. When I first joined Smogon, this guy was one of my heroes. He was one of the definitive parts of the DPP metagame, and um, he is never not creative. Sometimes very much to a fault, but he's always thinking of the new strategies. It's amazing. His battle against Panamaxis in the 2015 Cup, round two, it's one of my favorite DPP games of all time. And like just from the matchup, you're just shitting yourself basically if you have any semblance of scope of that game. So, but yeah, even before I was coming around, this guy was one of the definitive PPP guys. He had the team of Torment RMT that really introduced Torment to the world. I'm not sure if it was his original idea. I think it was said whose it was in the RMT itself, but basically that's what I knew him as, the Torment guy. I love that set so much. I put it on so many of my teams. But yeah, he then played Black and White, and he was really good at that. And he won his this World Cup 2012 with this, and one of his most famous moments was in the 2011 World Cup. He brought a fucking Aaron, as an Aron, to the tiebreaker against Earthworm, and he nearly pulled it off. Astounding, absolutely astounding. But yeah, he's always been a proponent of creativity, nicest guy in the world, and just fearsome at DPP. He had another very known RMT, the Uxie Screens offense, which abused Magnetran offense Suiku when it was still fledgling, and Specs Latias, which was just a beast at the time, and Salamence, which was what he considered the best Pokemon in OU. Crazy, crazy stuff. And he has this other, not officially documented but pretty well known team with lead Akajirachi and Infernape, offensive Suicune, and bulky SD Scizor. It's a really good team. I like it a lot. I played it once at a tour. It was nasty. Oh, it has Empoleon too. Fucking scary team. But yeah, he won Smogon Premier League 2, playing Black and White for the Sharks, and then 5 being a manager for them. So, and he won the Black and White 2012 Frontier. using primarily Dark Trio Tentacle Tornadus Rain. So, and he was just a tremendous guy. So, um, really good player across DPP for years and years and years in black and white too, even though he's not really as well known for them. So, give him his props, um, for sure. And I wish I could go into detail more on all these guys, but I really want to actually be on time for work tomorrow. So, Blue Kirby, known for his love of Metagross, he was one of the guys behind Protect HP Fire Gengar. Back with CB Scizor, felt like it was on every team. Scizor was number one in usage, which, Gengar not feeling so great because it's Bullet Punch Pursuit, both lose. But if you Protect, then you know which one's coming, and if you Pursuit, you HP Fire that shit away. He won SPL2 as, I believe, a manager for the Sharks, and was he was the manager of Oceania during, or I think he played once in a while. He had a very notable battle against a player, maybe Taylor, I'm not sure, but he had a very tight one. I remember reading about in one of the Smogon articles. And yeah, then this was most of his playing career was before my time as well. But I remember he was very, very noted. Hasn't really played since like 2010, I think. But yeah, back in his day, he was kind of a beast. And when the managerial route, then he's up there with McCreary. So, you know, oh CTC, what do I say about this guy that you haven't heard about Blundell already? But yeah, I remember when he came up, he was nice dude. I remember we bonded because we were collectively making fun of Jason Phone in a call. It was early stages of friendship. Um, but yeah, he joined East in 2013. He was a big part of the success, team building. When he sent East to the semifinals by defeating Ojama in round two, that was big. Um, then he won SPL 6 with the Classiest and 7 with the Sharks, and he won friggin' World Cup with East in 2015 too, even though he wasn't really around that much. But when he was around, then he helped like hell. So, I mean, you know, what more can I say about him? He's creative to a fault. The black and white and XY metagames were really so influenced by him, it was ridiculous. So, moving on to Husk, another contender for best ever in his day. But his legacy extends to even before I was around, way before I was around. He was one of the defining guys back in advance. Like even in Advanced UU, I think he was one of the big names. He had the stall team with Wish Flareon, which sounds like the coolest thing in the world to me. But what do I know? In DPP, he was one of those guys who were just using really terrifying offensive teams a lot. He was known for his popularization of a then BL Pokemon in Aerodactyl. He uses a Suicide Rock Sleeve, piled on the offense after, cleaning up with Deoxys speed. And yeah, he was known for really scary offensive teams. He was just one of the best players. He was in the part of the Asia Dynasty, as you see from the World Cups, and he won the first SPL as part of the Scooters, and two, he was on the Sharks. So, much I would love to, he was, but much I would love to go on about how great he was. Time is of the essence. We see IFM, an East product. At first, he came to prominence playing black and white. That's the gen he started in, even back when Blaziken was allowed. And he went, I think, 8-3 or 9-2, maybe 9-1, or something around that in SPL 3. So easily the best black and white OU record, playing for the Bigs before they lost to the Ruiners in finals. One of his losses was to Extra Shine's Choice Band Ferrothorn in the finals. Amazing. But yeah, and then he got an interest in GSC. He stopped really playing black and white after and started GCing it up, and he became known as one of the GSC guys in SPL and World Cup. Lots of finals appearances, and really good player all around. Not really a metagame advancing kind of guy, but he just plays the game really freaking well. And he's known for his heroic Zapdos that has no counters. Not even Restock Raikou, or Snorlax, or Quagsire for that matter. But yeah, we're gonna move on. We're gonna go on to Stone Cold, the fearless leader of US East. Not much I can really point to playing wise because most of his playing was done before my time, but he was responsible for a lot of East victories in 2012 when he first made finals because he made a fuckload of teams and he was always helping out and he knew the big names of the time and their styles really well and he could always find something which not a lot of people know and I don't think appreciate. But yeah, in his time he was something. He's always got a love for DPP and especially choice band right period, hence his picture. But yeah, he's the leader of East, and that's why he's here. Tobes, he came up with IFM in black and white. They were partially responsible for. I forgot to mention one of Stone's accomplishments was this Doug Trio Rain team in black and white one that had sub DD Roost Dragonite, and that set is still a terror today. So next time you get swept by one of those, remember this guy did it, and Tobes was instrumental in helping him find that. I think Tobes tells the story like he and IFM were playing, I believe, Iron Bullet for a World Cup, and they were like, man, this guy's teams are so weak to DD Roost Dragonite, so ridiculous with multi-scale. And then they were like, well, we need a last move, and they're like, let's use sub. I bet it's ridiculous. And so it was. So something like that happened, and Stone kept messing with it. But yeah, I should actually find that RMT. But yes, let us move on. So, next up we have CL, who has a legitimate case for best player of all time, because CL has something that no one else on this list has. There are a lot of players with 2 individual trophies. We go back to freaking Vil, Goofball, Atticus, this trio. But CL has, as you can see, 3. That's a big deal. He won the first Grand Slam. He won Smogon Tour. I was around for that, but I don't remember the details much. Where he beat Nelson in finals, and Nelson had just beat Heist, and Blue, and McMegan, i.e., big frigging deal. And CL had not pulled any punches. I think he beat Blairjan and FLCL, who were really good at those tiers. So, yeah. Then Smogon Tour 21 came around. BPP Black and White and Oris, he won that. And he beat Hellponer in round 1, which some might say, okay, big deal. But then he beat Malekith, Sweepage, and Cosine 180. So, big deal, yeah. Always using really, really solid teams and advocating for the best play styles, which to many people's chagrin these days include stall. But yeah, we're not going to get into that. And then he won official ladder tournament with lots of Chanseys and Toxapexes, and a lot of people did not enjoy that. But he then won the last game with a fucking Pikachu. Not because he was the best choice or anything, just because it was a dare. He made it to the winners. I think he won like 10 games in a row in the winners bracket and finished off with a Pikachu. So, yeah, there is this accomplishment is objectively, because I know a lot of this who's the best player stuff is subjective, and how could it not be? It's not a fight against it, but if we're going by purely objective measures, then this is it. So, yeah. Song, 2 Smogon Tour wins. He was the second to do that. Kind of a big deal. He did it in Smogon Tour 18 when he was still relatively unknown. All he had done was play in SPL, play some XY. DPP Black and White and XY at the time was the last it was the second and last pure XY tour, and the second one was Oris. He was a great player. He won. He had some great SPL records as well. He joined East. He played advanced there because he was really into that, and he had a terrific record as well. Yeah, he was just really, really strong player. As most people who remember him, he wasn't afraid to play with what he liked, and he liked his Volcaronas and other shit that was strong and underrated. And he was known for being lucky, kind of like a couple other players on this list, but not really. You can't really contest what he's done. So he made the finals of the second Smogon Classic as well. He's very close to having where he lost to Shake, aka Tsunami. So he was very close to having threes. One of only a handful of players who have been in three individual tournament trophy finals. So he wasn't really a metagame advancing kind of guy, but he always used really strong teams and uh, wasn't afraid to make the plays. And he was just a big definitive part of the era of tournaments that he was in, which was latter 2014 through 2016. Um, yeah, he was also in. I think he made the finals of like every individual trophy tournament, Grand Slam, OLT. So big deal. Golden Sun. He was the first winner of the ADV DPP Black and White Tour format back in spring 2011. I remember him defeating Enzo in the finals. He was a bulky sand team kind of guy. He was mostly he came up in DPP OU, I believe. He was a current gen kind of player. Then he transitioned to black and white. He was great at those. He was the first seed in the tour he won. He was really strong. He made like finals of tournaments, the tours every week. I remember this very notable one against Frankie. He never won those. He had this clay doll team. It was actually pretty cool, but because it was a Terrakion counter, and then he got X Scissor, but not perfect. And then he just went all the way. He was a tremendous player. Always used really solid teams. And then he really liked Advance from playing it in the tour, sorry. And then he started playing that in the team tournaments. At first he was a major stall guy. He was just Kuhn, Skarm, Gar, Bliss, played all every team, throwing some Zapdos too. And but then in SPL5, after in SPL4 he ran into some real trouble with Magneton and really strong offensive stuff because ADV offense is always getting better and finding new ways to uh, take advantage of the defensive teams. Really beautiful metagame. Then he started going on the more offensive route in SPL5 and became known there for. He had a great record. He went like 8-2 or something, and he became known for one his modest Rest Hog Zapdos, but two his Magic CB Metagross that always punched through shit. He really liked his offensive stuff with P2 and threw some sweetness and shit, but he was just really on his game there. He was one of the defining advanced guys. And then he kept that playstyle up for a while through SPL 6. It was good there, not as dominant, but it's hard to repeat dominant seasons over and over again. But yeah, man, it was just it was really something to behold. And yeah, then he started getting he started running some trouble with the same playstyle over and over again because stall teams do adapt as well. But yeah, he was just really solid, and then he started varying his playstyle up again. Mixing some spikes in there when people really wouldn't expect to see it coming. And yeah, he was part of the 2011 Oceania World Cup win. When I was talking about how he's one of the definitive black and white guys there, and then he was part of this team that won the first black and white World Cup. He was one of the guys. He beat Blue in the finals, which everyone was like, "Holy shit!" The Frontier champion against the latest Tour champion. That is a big heavyweight battle, and it really was. Golden Sun had this bulky sand team with Scarf Lando against Blue using iconic Stub Trio Rain. It was incredible. Golden Sun made this unbelievable move. I don't think anyone would have considered back then. Blue made this double switch into Doug Trio from Tornadus against the Mew, expecting Trantar to come in, and Golden Sun used Wisp and hit the Doug, and it was just unbelievable to watch. So, yeah, we'll go on to Hugo, Great Astrid. Side note, I always thought it was weird when people who didn't know him personally called him Hugo. It's strange. But, yeah, on that important note, then he was a black and white one ladder guy, but then he started playing. Then he really became known in black and white too, when he joined OST and he had the drama there. But he ended up winning the whole thing. And he was just one of the definitive guys. Like you would see everywhere, people say for the next like 2 years, I'm using a Hugo team. He was one of the first real team builders, so to speak, because he built so many really good teams that people would be like, yeah, I'm using a Hugo team. Before that, it wasn't really a thing to have. It was kind of normal to make your own teams. This isn't a rag or anything. It's just that he was one of the first quote unquote team builders, alongside CTC actually, and he won SPL 4 as part of the Wolfpack, and then World Cup with Easts. He had a really good 2013. And then XY came out. He was one of the early big guns in that. He was really, really shaping the metagame with Spadef Gliscor and Mola. And he had this new Mola. I think it was good. He had a Gudra there too, maybe. It was Titar, Exka, Zardwy, and shit. And Shake It Up loves that team to this day. But yeah, he was always into. He loved building teams. He always made a bunch of great ones and really advanced the metagame. And then he left after. The style stuff in 2015, but first time he was really up there. So moving on, IPL Imperfect Luck, and I'm gonna have to cut this soon because this is already fucking long. But yeah, IPL was one of the best advanced players back in Net Battle. I wasn't around for that, but he was also one of the best players all throughout DP. He was known as the Godfather of Stall, as fancy as that might sound. But yeah, he was abusing. I remember August was telling me about this Wobbuffet Doug Trio stall team people just could not handle. Maybe it was during the Garchomp era. I'm not really sure. I wasn't around for Garchomp. But yeah, he was a huge stall guy. He had this famous RMT called Fried Ice Cream. He had the Cursed Spiritomb for the last Pokemon setup. He was famous for leading Blissey. And in OST 7, the last DPP one, he won. He used a bunch of unorthodox strategies, including Baton Pass and this Paralysis team that he RMT'd. But yeah, he was a tremendous, tremendous player, and really new stuff. He was part of the early Asia dynasty, and he was also he made finals of Smogon Tour. I want to say 9, where he lost to Zach 91 because he was also really, really good at UU. I don't know much about his Ubers. I think he was good there too. He was playing black and white Ubers early in SPL 2, so I assume. Because most of the black and white Ubers guys had a grasp on it from DPP. It wasn't a huge difference, besides Ferrothorn and Reshiram and Zekrom were a big deal, but not a huge deal. And Arceus was released. But basically, like, if you had a grasp on DP, you could play black and white without much trouble. So, Psystrike, Mewtwo, and shit. But, yeah, he was really good at UU. I think he had a famous Snover team going on for a while with Walrein and shit. He was some Hailstall. Yeah, he was one of the definitive players of a couple of gens. And I remember he wasn't really ever playing Black and White OU like actively. Actually, no, that's not entirely true. He made it. He came very close to a repeat in OST 8 because he was using Baton Pass again alongside the weird double slow twin stall team, I think, and some other shit. But early on in Black and White, on the ladder, he had this terrifying Bronze on Gliscor Blissey stall team. I remember my buddy Roscoe was laddering, he was like, dude, I saw IPL laddering with the stall team last night. That shit is so nasty. So I wish I could remember it. But he was a fucking terror. So, moving on. Anime Nagai, I don't know this guy very well. He was always around, but he didn't really stand out much as a player, which isn't a knock against him, because I know personally that he was very, very good, but he was in a very, very tough C. So, but I remember he was always a good player. He had this, he had some pretty good games, especially against a Lamppost. That was a really good one. And Black and White in the last Black and White One World Cup 2012. He was part of Oceania for 3 years. Big deal. And I think he had some pretty good RMTs then, and he was good at UU too. So I'm sorry I don't know more, man, but you're good. Babidi 1998 Heist, considered by many to be the best player to never have gotten an individual trophy. So these days he's known for his gimmicky Doug Trio, Zatu, Chansey stall teams, and he really likes going against the grain. But back in his time, then he was one of the best DP players, and I think I'm going to cut it at like 30 or something. But he was one of the best DP players. He was known as Earthworm's protege for a while. But yeah, he was one of the best DP players when Black and White OU came out. He was amazing there. I think he did not lose a single game in the first 2 Black and White World Cups, 2011 and 2012. He just had win after win after win, like 6-0, 5-0. It was just amazing. So he was always advancing the metagame too, and DP as well, years and years after it stopped being the main metagame. And when Tor was around, he was he was very good at advanced too, and he made the finals of the first Smogon Classic. But yeah, in SPL 5, he played RU and DBP for the Sharks. DBP before they got Atticus, but then RU, he was a huge black and white RU guy. He made Grand Slam playoffs. Um, he made it pretty far in OST, the first XY one, really far actually. I think he lost to Valentine, who was getting ghosted by CTC, but whatever. Um, yeah, then World Cup, he was part of the Oceania 2012, 2010, 11 dynasty. These are the ones where he went undefeated. Oh, no, I'm sorry, he went undefeated in this one. This one I don't know much about as far as it went for him, but yeah, for years and years he's just been one of the best players and really pushing the limits of Pokemon. So, Dragon user, as east as they come. He was on the team when it had its breakout in 2012. He showed people he was a great, great player. He liked to use dragons. He had his offense, but he could throw around basically whatever. He had a great World Cup. Then after that, he had a great SPL for the Cryos. Um, he really broke out there. Then the next World Cup, then he ended up winning. So during the Black and White World Cups, he was a force. And early XY, he was pretty good too. Um, and then he really stopped playing, and we haven't seen much from him after that, apart from some stints in Oris and then early Sun and Moon. But yeah, Black and White, he was my buddy, and he was a tremendous fucking player. I miss that dude. He was responsible for a lot. I think he was the guy who really set out the Healing Wish fad. Because in SPL 4, then I think his week 1 game against Kidogo, he Healing Wish to a Kingdra that ended up sweeping Kidogo's rain team. I think I'm not 100% sure, but I know he Healing Wished, and that was like everyone was like, "Holy shit, that move exists." Before that, it was never, ever, ever seen, and then it just exploded. Everyone was using Healing Wish on their Scarfrachi. So, um, and on Latias sometimes too. But yeah, basically it was he was one of those in Black and White One. He had this great Sun team with Tobes' Heatran. I forgot to mention Tobes had a Weather Trapper Heatran named after him because he was really using it to really fuck Politoed in the ass. So yeah, he used the Weather Trap Heatran a lot, and he was just yeah. In 2012, East used the shit out of Sun with Tobes Heatran and just kept winning because he was just so goddamn good. And Dragon User was just one of their star players. And yeah, he was the man. So 20 Fulgorio, I mentioned him earlier as one of the DPP UU guys, but he was really great. He was always showing up there. He was he was pretty damn good at DPP OU too. He made tour playoffs, and early Black and White OU, he was also one of the definitive players. He really rose up from good player to really one of the guys in the metagame. And I've seen this happen for many generations now, where that happens with the release of the new gen, and the guys that were good before just rise up and start becoming, you know, the part of the defining parts of the new generation. So, um, yeah, he was one of those. He always hated Thundurus. He liked Virizion and Latias, and um, yeah. Then he stopped playing for a few years, and then he came back recently and joined East last World Cup. But yeah, he was part of the stacked Indy Scooters in SPL 1, and he was on the Ruiners in SPL 3. He was a definitive part of that, and he always used good teams. He had like Rotom C and Tanner and Spory, Scarf Tower, Luke D Knight, and then this really strong, not Rain Stall, but like Rain Balance team. And he would you would go yeah, you could always count on him to bring a solid team. He was a great player too. So yeah, he was a big part of the metagames when he was around through 2012. World Cup 2012, I believe, was his final hurrah. Maybe a little before that. Before he came back to play just a little bit. But yeah, Gene, he was another guy who intimidated the shit out of me when I first started playing. And he was known for being one of the advanced legends from NetBattle. He really liked his anti-spikes teams, and I used to use the shit out of his CB Ments anti-spikes team. I wouldn't call it CV Events anti-spikes, just that those are features it had. But yeah, it was another good team. And he was just I wasn't really around for when he mainly played, but he was also part of the Scooters in SPL1. He had a really good record there. It was I don't remember quite what it was, but he was also really good at GSC and RBY. And yeah, he doesn't hasn't really played much in recent memory, but he was part of the Asia Dynasty early on, and he won a lot of tournaments for his time. So always champion Flygon, which as the great Pokemon, which it is in advance. So yeah, he was another one of the definitive guys in those metagames. So, and last part for this video, Hikari. He played he's known as a lower tier guy, and he played RU in this SPL. And I remember he was on the Cryos in the SPL after he came back, or two SPLs after, formed a very nasty tag team with Case Victory. He was just scary, but yeah, he's always been a great RU guy. And yeah, he was on the classiest here and Sharks here, so he always has really good records too, and beats the shit out of his competition regularly. But sadly, since he's a lower tier guy, I can't really offer much. Okay, so since we have one more than Hitmonlee, since I didn't really offer much, Hitmonlee is originally known as like one of the best RBYers for his time. He came back in 2015 when a lot of people came back, and he played actually pretty damn well in new metagame. But yeah, he made the finals of one of the second advanced OST, I believe. So the second one as a whole. So he was obviously a very good advanced player. He played one of the GSC battles of the week, so he was one of the early gen guys. You'll see him in GG Fans' book actually, and he was really around during the early days. So, and I don't remember ever seeing him play DP, but I know he was good at that. And in Black and White 1, the first World Cup, the last World Cup Oceania won, this one, 2011, he was playing there too. So, then he didn't really play much after that. So, except for his occasional returns to RBY. So, yeah, he was another big dude in the Pokemon world. So, Oceania through and through. So, I'm gonna cut it there because holy fucking shit. I will continue this sometime. I'm glad I finally got this off the ground. I've wanted to do it as Call Train came out. I hope this was somewhat enjoyable to you, and I hope to keep going soon. So, yeah, I will catch you next time. I'm off to go watch some more Community and the adventures of Britta and, well, I can't spoil for those who are just starting to watch, but yeah, Britta's up to something as usual. So is Jeff and Annie and the crew. And I'm going to do it while eating these Graham crackers so I don't get fat. Alright, I hope you all enjoy.